In this edition of Mid-Table Crisis, we pick out our ones to watch for the World Cup and spread the word about an obscure footballer who scores goals for fun. So, Simon, who can you see taking the cup home in 2014?
I can't really look past Brazil in their home country, or possibly Uruguay. Colombia could be a surprise package, because they finished above Chile and Uruguay in the qualification groups, so I think they finished as high as second. Only Argentina were better.
It's interesting. I've heard Colombia talked about as the most underrated, overrated team of the next World Cup. A bit like Belgium. A lot of people have been saying for a few years, "Oh, Belgium look good. Belgium look very good." Now, the amount of people that have said Belgium look looking a good team for the World Cup, they're now becoming an overrated, underrated team because before nobody thought of them, and now people are starting to talk about them so much. They're sort of everyone's dark horse.
Belgium are like a really good hit single that hits the charts, and soon you hear it everywhere. And by the time you come to the festival season or buying a CD, you're sick of them because everyone's always talking about them or showing you clips or whatnot.
A bit like the Crazy Frog in the mid 2000s. I understand what you mean, but I think they'll have enough kick to do well when they get there. But yeah. I mean, what I was saying as well was that Colombia were sort of a watered-down version of that. I mean, perhaps not got quite as much potential as Belgium, and also people aren't talking about them quite as much in the same breath. But I think Colombia have got a very good chance myself, because yes, they've got a lot of good players, young players.
Arguably one of the best strikers going at the moment in Falcao. And one good player can make a tournament for you.
And they've got a couple of good wingers that we know of, and they've got a good mixture of, some might say a bit too much experience, especially at the back, but they've got a good mixture of youth and experience that should see them through the group stages quite nicely, and they'll adjust to the South American climate quite well as well. So yeah,
being South American,
yes.
We've touched on this with speaking about Colombia, but the playoffs. The playoffs have finished, and now we fully know who's going and who isn't going.
Mm.
So, Tom, some surprise packages, possibly?
Well, I was going to say, obviously, France. France shouldn't really be having to go through the playoffs. If you think of, in our lifetime, when I think of the French, I think of 98, I think of 2000s, I think of the teams that would go to a World Cup with the idea of winning it. They've had a full, and it's not like this is a particularly bad French team, Maybe they haven't got a Zidane, they haven't got an Henry,
I mean, we are overlooking the fact that France were in Spain's group for the qualifiers.
Yes. That is true. I just expected them to put up more of a fight.
Well, you've touched on the fact that they were World Cup winners, and this is true, but this was over a decade ago, and a decade is a long time in football.
If a week's a long time in football, then a decade's a long time in football.
I'm not saying they've fallen particularly, but perhaps others have caught up. Like Germany have become resurgent. Spain have finally mastered how to win a tournament after years and years of waiting. Much like tantric sex, Spain have finally come to their climactic conclusion.
Well, that's an image that I'll never be able to get out of my head. The entire Spanish team being referred to as being like tantric sex. But I'll take your point there. I can see why you said it. I don't want you to ever say it again. But I'd agree that I think it's to a certain extent it was France's time then. It's Spain's. I was going to say it's Spain's time now, but it might not even be Spain's time now. But it was Spain's time for the last 4 or 5 years. I think there is a certain ebb and flow, especially to international football. You have the golden generations. You have your generations that are not as good. So
I think you're right about the French team, is that it doesn't have a superstar anymore.
There's no Thierry Henry. There's no.
Although
Zinedine
it's funny that you mention Henry, because famous, of course, for his hand of frog that denied Ireland a 2010 place. Many people have been commenting on the fact that France's third goal on Tuesday night was noticeably offside. So, can France get there without cheating? That's the question some people have been asking.
Was it Benzema?
I believe it was, yes.
I heard. I haven't seen the game, I've heard that he had a goal incorrectly ruled offside that was onside, and that was disallowed. And then he scored from an offside position, but it was given. So I think that's football karma working. It doesn't always happen, but
it doesn't always happen over the course of a single game. They're there. They'll probably fall apart in the group stages, like they nearly always do these days.
That's a good chance it's going to happen. But fair play to them for overcoming Ukraine, because they were a tough team and they needed to win that game, and they needed to win it well because they were 2-0 down from the first leg. So they showed real resolve. Fair play to them. And the other teams that went through, of course, we've got Sweden versus Portugal. I mean,
the heavyweight showdown of the tie. Billed as Zlatan and 10 others versus Ronaldo and 10 others by many joke sites.
I was going to say, I think we've all seen the news build up to it. Ibrahimovic versus Ronaldo. It was billed as, and they delivered on the night. 5 goals between them in, I think it was about a 30-minute spell.
Yeah.
All in the second half, all between about 50 minutes and about 80 minutes.
As much as we pain to say it, as it pains me to say it, the World Cup will be a poorer place without Zlatan. The trouble is with this is that Zlatan Ibrahimovic knows it.
Oh,
I mean, he came out afterwards and said, "I won't be watching the World Cup now because I'm not in it," and that does have the odour of petulance about it. But
do you reckon he doesn't watch the golf because he's not in it?
Anything Zlatan's not in, he doesn't watch. I mean,
his kids are playing football. Dad, will you come and watch me the weekend? Can I play? No. I'm not. Why would I want to watch it then?
It's the same reason he hasn't yet seen The Notebook, despite his wife's insistence.
I swear you're in it. About 50 minutes in, I can see you in the background.
Speaking of Zlatan, have you seen his latest escapade?
No.
He has given each of his PSG teammates a signed Zlatan Ibrahimovic edition of the Xbox One.
What's the Zlatan Ibrahimovic edition?
Well, each team member gets their name and number on the box, and underneath a signature from the man himself. If that's not arrogance, I don't know what is.
I think that's just the kind of person he is. He thinks that's a great gift for everyone. I think to a certain extent he assumes the PSG players must be in awe of him. He sees himself as a football god.
He believes in his own stock, and on the pitch, that's not a bad thing to do. But to carry it off the pitch with you, I find it's a bit excessive.
He's like Nicholas Bentner, but with talent.
Oh.
Which would be a nice thing to see. But it is. The World Cup will be poor for not having Ibrahimovic, but Portugal go through, and they showed a lot of resolve and a lot of.
And more importantly, a even better player gets to go in, Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah. So it may be Ibrahimovic's last chance. He might get another one. He'll be well into his 30s by the time 2018 comes around. But it's not beyond the realms of possibility. So
from 2 footballing superstars to a much more pedestrian tie in the round, Greece versus Romania. The Greeks sneaking through the back door, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, they've been scoring some goals. I'm going to try and get this right. Konstantinos Mitroglou. He's
one of his goals was meant to be a well-placed effort, to say the least. But I just get the feeling with that tie that if they had drawn anyone else but themselves, I don't think we'd even be talking about them, really.
If they'd have drawn anyone else but themselves?
Well, if they'd drawn anyone else but each other, I mean.
Oh, okay. Yes. And Greece will play Greece, the most bizarre playoff we've ever seen. One team won't go, and one team will. It ended up 8-4.
They'd still struggle to a 1-0 win in that.
Yeah.
In the old days.
Greece, of course, famous for their long ball tactics that won them the Euro. Was it Euro 2004, was it?
Euro 2004. Before that tournament, they hadn't won at a major tournament ever. And then they left as champions.
Big Portugal in the final. Eusebio was in tears. Yeah. I don't think anyone was too devastated outside of Romania that Romania didn't make it. I mean, I'm a big fan of Adrian Mutu. I know he's had a falling out with the manager.
I was going to say, it's not an advocation of drug use, is it, being a fan of
No. You know, while he was in South America, he could have picked it up. But I'm sure those days are behind him. And it would have been nice to see him, because I was a big fan of him when he was at Chelsea. He scored some cracking goals. And he's 34 now, which is bizarre to think of. I think Greece probably just about deserved it. You know, the Greek team, they've got some good players, they've got some good young players coming through, and as I say, a lot of people are looking at Mitroglou. A lot of Premiership teams are, because I know he's scored more goals in games so far.
I mean, I didn't see much of the game itself, but they've got players like Satoris Ninis, who looks to me to be an exciting prospect.
Very exciting prospect. He's a little attacking midfielder who can also play just off the striker, and playing the whole. He's got a little bit of everything. He's still very young, but he could set the world alight if he wants to. I mean, probably 2014 might be a tournament too early for him, but by 2016 he should be really showing us what he's got.
Yeah, definitely. This is more than just a European game, of course, and I feel we've been a bit too one-track. So we'll look over to Africa, who've also found out who's going and who isn't going. And I think the tie of the round was definitely Ghana versus Egypt. I mean, Ghana did enough in the first leg to carry them through.
Was it not a ridiculous scoreline? Was it 5 or 6-1?
A 5 or 6-1 at home. I think it was 7-3 on aggregate, so that does sound about right.
Yeah, I remember. I think Bob Bradley.
You can tell how much research I put into this.
Yeah, I think it's fine. It's fine.
But it's an interesting fact that came up with this is that Egypt haven't qualified for a World Cup since Italia 90. And yet they've won 4 African Cup of Nations in that period, which just shows how convoluted they're making the process of qualification, perhaps.
The problem with Egypt is they're big fish in a small pond in Africa. To a certain extent, I don't know quite how to put this, but can you imagine an Egyptian team getting past the group stages in the World Cup? You know, I think they'd struggle. I really think they'd struggle. So,
if they were granted the obligatory easy group that one tends to see at a World Cup,
the opposite of a group of death, a group of life.
The group of eternal life from '98 would have suited them to the ground, but I don't see them making a splash. I'd say they're very much. I mean, when everyone talks about Africa, no one talks about Egypt, despite the fact they have won 4 African Cup of Nations in recent memory.
They're a top quality African team, but it seems only in Africa. I can't remember an Egypt team doing that well at the World Cup, as you say, because they haven't qualified for a while. And but I can't, even from memory, I can remember I can remember Algerian teams. I can remember. Who can I remember? You know, when you think of World Cup in Africa, you think of Cameroon, you think of Ghana, you think of Nigeria, but you don't think of Egypt. Mm. And
it's funny that you mention Algeria, because, of course, that's the other tie of the African round, denying Burkina Faso a first ever appearance. And yet, the Burkina Faso Football Federation has complained to FIFA over claims that Algeria's used an ineligible player in the second leg of the tie. So we have our obligatory bit of controversy in the playoffs.
It's not quite someone losing an eye like I know happened in a game between Egypt and Algeria once, but
that was one of the coaches, I believe, wasn't it?
I think it was one of the coaches. There was a big brawl afterwards, and somebody put his eye out, which just goes to show the sort of tensions that run high in North African football.
Oh no, you're right. In comparative terms, an eligible player isn't that bad in comparison.
Yeah. But I know that Cape Verde were famously doing very well. They looked like they had a chance of qualifying. In fact, I think they were supposed to be in the playoffs themselves, but they were denied a place in the playoffs due to fielding an ineligible player themselves. And if it turns out that Algeria have qualified while fielding an ineligible player, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I can't. We're not exactly going to have a replay, though. I mean, Sepp Blatter sort of played down that after the Hand of Frog incident in 20... Again, I'm not alluding to the Hand of Frog incident. He played down the thoughts of there being a replay, as football is a game of moments. But with ineligible play, you could see it happening.
Yeah.
But you have to wonder with like ineligible players, surely people check these things. It seems a very silly thing to be caught out over. Like, in this day and age, with so much at stake, you must know you're going to be caught doing it on purpose. And if you're not doing it on purpose, then it's extreme incompetence on your part. So either way, you're a fool.
I think the one example that every football fan will know is, of course, when Nuneaton Town were deducted 6 points for fielding Andy Brown a couple of seasons ago, which nearly ruled them out of the playoffs. They subsequently didn't go up anyway, but
of course, it shook football to its very core, didn't it?
I remember weeping for days on end personally. But as much as you say, people, surely people check this, they slip through the net. They really do. It happens. But when there's possible World Cup places riding on it, you'd wish people would be a little bit more careful.
But we finally have our lineup shaped up for 2014.
Mm-hmm. And who, ruling out Belgium and Colombia, who is your dark horse?
Ooh. Now, my second team, not necessarily my dark horse, but my second, obligatory second team, of course every England fan has one, that they can pretend they were supporting all along.
Yeah.
Bosnia. I think Bosnia could put together something. And definitely get out the groups, possibly.
Definitely get out the groups, possibly. That is.
I'm sitting on the fence here, Tom.
He's sitting on the fence, almost purposefully sitting on the fence. And to be honest, I would have gone for Bosnia too.
It's hard to make sweeping statements without seeing the group stage, but seeing the group draw. But no, I think Bosnia were a pretty difficult qualification group, and they came through that very well.
They came top, didn't they?
Indeed. Greece and Slovakia were in their group.
And Greece don't really know how to lose, so...
It wasn't by any means the hardest of groups, but they've got a good core of attacking players. Ibisevic, Dzeko, Pjanic. They've got a great attacking force. I worry about them defensively, though. Coming up against more experienced, well, not more experienced, but more skilled teams, as they inevitably will, on the big stage.
They could easily be cut apart, is what you're saying.
Not to the level of North Korea, but yes, it could get very difficult for them very quickly.
But they've got good firepower up front as well, and they've got a decent midfield, so they'll be interesting. They'll definitely be one to watch. An exciting team, certainly.
So, your outside runner then, your hot tip, your dark horse. Who are you backing?
I was going to go for Bosnia, thank you very much. But
once again, I've pulled the rug from underneath you.
Yes, you like to do that, don't you? Brazil look quite good. No, I would probably, honestly, I'd say Russia. Russia topped Group F. They didn't pull up any trees doing it. They bettered Portugal's points total by 1. So
they have Capello as manager, of course.
Yeah, they do.
A man famous for making qualification look easy. Of course, England fans will now point out to me what happens once you get there.
Yeah, but he's the ultimate, results game manager. He doesn't. He'd take 1-0 every game, a 1-0 win every game for the rest of his life. So I think he's going to make them tough to beat. I think I can see him squeaking through the groups, and then making a few surprises on the way. I would not be surprised to see them in the semis, and maybe who knows from then on.
Well, I personally think the semis would be a bit too much for them, but the quarters they could easily make. So you mentioned surprise. Who are you most surprised to see in the pot? Which team getting there just made you really think, okay, something seriously has become unbalanced in the force in the world of football.
I said there's an imbalance in the force. Well, I was surprised how close Mexico came to not making it. Panama were nearly in the pot. I was a little bit surprised to see Uruguay doing so badly. They had to go through the playoffs.
Yeah, they played Jordan, and I mean, they were quite brutal when they played Jordan. Let's face it. I mean, 5-0 at Jordan just shows that Uruguay realised they had to come through on the big when it mattered.
It's a shame because I think we all would have liked to see Jordan there. I was surprised how well Switzerland did as well, topping their group. Admittedly, it wasn't the hardest group, but they were 7 points clear. Switzerland, not one of the world powers.
I can't think of many Switzerland names that would light the world up. I mean, they've got Shaqiri, but no one else.
I mean, he's technically, I think he's more Albanian than he is Swiss, but I don't think he particularly wants to play for Albania. So that's something else to think about. But
I mean, another surprise package, I'd have to say, is Iran.
Iran?
Iran topped their group, which included South Korea. So that's no mean feat.
Amongst their ranks a few years ago was the world's highest international goal scorer, Ali Dyer. Not Ali Dyer, George Weah's cousin, played for Southampton for 50 minutes. Ali Dyer, he was an Iranian striker, also played for Bayern Munich. He played over 100 games for Iran and scored over 100 goals, the only player to scored over 100 international goals. Unless you ask Romario, in which case he'll tell you he's probably scored about 500.
Wow, Romario, notorious for rounding up. But, no,
rounding up to the nearest 10,000. Oh dear me!
Iran. I mean, the Asian Cup, which is the obviously the Asian equivalent to the Euros.
Yeah, that's their equivalent. And
I mean, it's usually dominated by South Korea and Japan, and for one of the big horses in Asian football to be beaten in the group by Iran, I mean, they might get one result in the World Cup's group stages, but I can't see them doing too well beyond that.
With Iran, you can never be certain. I think that's a motto for life as well as the World Cups. I think they'll struggle, but at the same time, they have got Kayebi, who is a very capable player. You might remember him from Leicester, if you're from that way. He can play at full back, or he can play in midfield. He can play out wide. Very versatile player. I think he just gives them a bit of an edge. Every team needs a star, and I think he's one of their team stars. I know they've also got some very experienced players.
Well, there you go, kids. With Christmas coming up, just rush up to your parents and demand a Kayebi shirt.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be hot property soon enough.
I mean, I know he's not very well regarded in Leicester because of his less than stellar performances there, but I'm a big fan. And they've also got Javad, I'm never sure how to say this, Nekuman. I'm a big fan of him as well. He played for Osasuna for 6 seasons. Yeah, he's played in Spain. He's got 140 odd caps. He's the kind of player they'll be looking to. They're experienced players. I think there'll be enough to get them a few points. I won't say they'll get through the group, but I'd say I wouldn't be surprised if they snatch a win here or there.
They might make their presence felt at one point.
I think they certainly will. They certainly shouldn't be written off.
Talking about, for me, what's most surprising is who's not there. I mean, for the first time, well, certainly in my lifetime, there again, I am only 22, there are no Scandinavian teams at this tournament?
Well, you say in your lifetime. To be honest, in my knowledge of football, I can't think of the last time that happened. And partially, of course, because in the late 80s, Denmark were a major force with the Laudrup brothers, and before that, you've got to think of Alkjaer, Simonsen. There's been some great Scandinavian players in the past, and there's still some great Scandinavian players now, but they've just fallen at the final hurdle often. Iceland, very unfortunately, got knocked out of the playoffs. Sweden, of course, we've already mentioned. Denmark weren't that far off, I don't think. They were quite close to making it. So
Denmark were unfortunately in the one group which didn't have a playoff berth, and they finished second in that.
They were in Italy's group, weren't they?
They were. They finished 6 points behind the Italians.
Yeah,
which you sort of expect, to be fair. I mean, you can't blame Denmark for not winning that group.
Well, you can blame Denmark for not winning that group, but you can't be too critical of them, because they would have struggled to match Italy's
might.
performances. So, yeah, it was very tough on them. And Finland, I'm a big Finn fan. I think we were all Finn fans when we saw Hippier and Lipmanen in the Premiership, although Lipmanen fairly briefly.
Of course, Jussi Jääskeläinen.
One
of the most famous Finns of all.
Yeah, well, Mixu Patalainen and his travelling family. A few of those played for Bolton, I know, back in the day as well.
Oh yes.
Big Scandinavian lovers, actually, the Bolton faithful, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, I think.
Of course, Finland had one of the hardest groups of all, being in the same group as Spain and France.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one, and they've never made a major tournament as well. They've never made it to the Euros or the World Cup, so I think it was I don't think we should. What I'm saying is, I don't think we should see this as the decline of Scandinavian football so much as just that they were in some tough groups, and it was going to be. Anyone would have struggled to top the group that Italy was in. Anyone would have struggled to get second in a group with Spain and France. Croatia are a good team. Iceland had Croatia in the playoffs. Anyone would have, Croatia would give anyone a game. And although it should be noticed, I think Iceland definitely deserve a lot of praise, because they're in the same group as Norway. They finished 5 points ahead of them. And Norway are a much more established international side.
That's true.
Iceland's got a population of under 350,000.
So to get second alone in the group, that's
a massive achievement. Massive achievement.
Do you reckon then it's less a case of Scandinavian football declining and more Eastern European football and catching up, as well as the draw?
To a certain extent, yes, I'd say so. I'd say.
I mean, look at the teams that have made it, such as Bosnia, Croatia, teams that say 15. Well, Bosnia was in a very, very different place 15, 20 years ago.
Well, Croatia didn't. Croatia? I think Croatia's first tournament was it 96 or 98. These are countries that are very young, and they've
in football terms.
Yes, well, in all terms, to be honest, because for a long time there were just regions in larger countries. So I think that's something you've got to consider, the fact that they had a very good World Cup '98, Croatia, but now they've got a bit more grounding, and they've got a bit more of the experience as a country, rather than as part of Yugoslavia as they were.
Yes, that's true.
So
now, you speak of experienced countries, and of course Croatia and Bosnia, we can't deny, are a young country, and yet an even younger country, one who was, well, they've just been born practically in footballing terms. Gibraltar have made their illustrious debut, drawing 0-0 against Slovakia.
It was Slovakia. It was, and what an actual what a brilliant, what a absolutely amazing tie. I mean, literally barely put it into words. Gibraltar, I've done a bit of research on the subject of Gibraltar and their struggles to be accepted into UEFA, and I can easily say it's one of the most. It really shows up the bureaucracy and all the politics that go on behind a game of football. Spain threatened to pull their national team out of the World Cup and the European Championships, and they also threatened to withdraw
Now, it's funny you mentioned this about Spain, because I've done my own little bit of digging. And Gibraltar have been entered into the pot for the Euros 2016 qualifying rounds. And there's a little caveat added to the draw, where Spain and Gibraltar must be kept separate.
Yeah. And I mentioned this earlier to a friend of the show, Mr. Rob Lamb, who inexplicably is a Scunthorpe fan. And, it's interesting it just show the politics. And, would you be able to tell me which two other sets of teams aren't allowed to be in the same pot?
Oh, I would, but
But you can't Google that quickly.
Yeah, no, my typing isn't that fast, I'm afraid.
Interestingly, it is Georgia and Russia, probably due to the conflict there.
That's the South Ossetia issue, I believe.
Yes, I think so. And I think it's Armenia and Azerbaijan. I think it's someone along those lines. I think it's Armenia and somebody else.
Right,
yeah.
possibly.
Spain threatened to withdraw Real Madrid and Barcelona from the Champions League if Gibraltar were put in to UEFA, which is ridiculous. Completely. Can you imagine how many irate Barca and Real Madrid fans there would be? And imagine the Champions League without those two. David Moyes wouldn't know. He wouldn't know he was born. I mean, honestly, I'd advise anyone who wants to just see how seedy and ridiculous and how sad FIFA and UEFA are. Have a look at Gibraltar's story, because they've been campaigning for years, for about at least 15 years, seriously campaigning to be in UEFA. And I know that when the voting started, I know only two countries voted against Gibraltar, and there were Spain and Belarus for some reason. Belarus, I think, they like to go against the grain. Said to have the last great dictator in Europe, but that's something else entirely. I was absolutely delighted to see that Gibraltar actually played a game, an official international game.
More than that, they got a result of sorts. I mean, 0-0 away is a decent result in international football.
Well, it was kind of at home. It was in Portugal, because their stadium does not correspond to UEFA's
code.
Yeah.
Yes, they're rebuilding it, aren't they?
And of course, the closest stadium would be somewhere in Spain, but Spain aren't going to let Gibraltar play there, so they had to play it over in Portugal in the Algarve, I think. And
you've caught me out with your expansive Gibraltar knowledge.
Well,
so I wonder if you can answer me this teaser: which two previously English players now, I guess, which two ex-Englishmen made their international debuts?
Danny Higginbottom, former Man United fullback.
And Stoke, of course, where he made more of an impact, let's face it.
And Sunderland.
He loves red, does Danny Higginbotham. He loves red.
And white. I do remember him scoring in the Newcastle Sunderland derby a few years ago. So I remember him at Sunderland. But there was someone playing for Barnsley. I don't know who it is. Liam something.
Scott Wiseman, I believe.
Scott Wiseman. You can have that one. I'll let you have it. Yeah. And I think there'll be a few more of those coming out of the woodwork now, because Gibraltar is a British territory, so we can expect a few more of those. And I am being told, what's that? What's that, Skippy? Liam Walker, ex Portsmouth player. I think he's now playing at Farsley Celtic, so he's off the grid a little bit. He's non-league, but he's an Englishman as well, or a Gibraltar now. So
well, it's basically the same thing, as much as the Spanish hate to admit it.
Yeah. So I think we can see look forward to a little bit more of that. The players, a bit like Chris Birchall, who played for Trinidad and Tobago, the players who aren't anywhere near good enough to play for their actual country go and play for the country of their fathers and mothers. That's nice.
See, this is where it slightly concerns me, Gibraltar joining. I mean, fair play to them, they're their own independent nation and all that, but where does it end? There's a lot of unofficial nations that worry me, like Jersey and Sark. We see like loads of nearly men who haven't quite made the English national team start piling onto the Gibraltar gravy train. I think it's going to get out of hand.
Partially from Gibraltar, though, they've got to have parents or sort of grandparents from there, so they can't all go on. You can't join, for example. I'm sorry.
My dreams have been cruelly dashed.
Although with your Spanish heritage, I doubt you'd want to play for them. But
that's a very inside joke there, listeners.
I think even to a certain extent, I don't remember what it's about. But I think I do know that Guernsey are more focused on club football, and Jersey are more interested in international football,
which is interesting. Very
interesting, and I'm sure some of our listeners will have heard of the Island Games, in which teams like Ireland, I think I'm saying that correctly, which is an island off Sweden, and teams like the Isle of Man, the Isle of Wight, Sark, or Alderney, those kinds of places, they compete in a sort of Olympic Games for small islands that are perhaps territories of bigger nations. Or
I think the Shetland Islands are part of the Island Games, are they not?
I think they are. They've got the Western Isles are as well, which are up in Scotland, a little collection of islands. They take part now and again as well. And I don't think it's going to open the floodgates, to be honest. I could understand your worries, but I think the amount of hassle that Gibraltar went through, and they had a lot of backing, I don't know if any of the other island nations particularly want to be in UEFA, and those that do, I don't know if they'd be able to
drum up the support.
Yeah, you need a lot of clout.
Well, I'm just looking through a bit of Island Games, like history.
Mm-hmm.
Like teams that have like come along and done well in recent years. Of course, the Ireland Islands. Ireland Islands. My Nordic languages aren't that good.
Yes.
Once again, sorry, listeners. And the Isle of Wight. I can't see the Isle of Wight making a play at football's top table.
I certainly can't.
And with 24 teams looking to qualify, well, 23 teams looking to qualify for Euro 2016, and of course the host is France. This means that nearly half of all members of UEFA will be at the next tournament, and that's quite a rare thing to see in this day and age. I often wonder, will there be like a two stages, will it come like the Champions League and Europa League, where we'll have the European Championships and the European Championships. I don't know. I'm not a name guy, but will you see teams like the Isle of Wight battling to play teams such as Portugal, who made the third place in their group and are consequently qualified for this
preliminary round for the European Championships?
Possibly. No, I mean like concurrently, like the Champions League and the Europa League.
I see what you mean. So basically,
like sort of a pimped up version of the Island Games, really, to an extent.
I see what you mean. I think there's a chance that will happen because you hear pundits talking about whenever we play someone like San Marino or Andorra, they always say, I think there should be a separate group for them because it's just ridiculous. They say that, but I think if I was from Andorra and I got to play against England, I'd say, please don't take that away from me because it is the best thing that's ever going to happen to me.
True, but I don't know with the the entertainment side of the game, and international football seems to be getting a lot more money conscious these days.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't rule it out. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You may wonder where much of mine and Tom's knowledge and passion for obscure teams and players comes from, and it's from the much worshipped, much adored, much adulated Football Manager series. And of course,
I would say it's not all from there. Some of it's based on hard, solid research and facts.
Of course,
some of it is based on Football Manager. It's certainly a bit apart.
I'd say it was the inspiration that inspired us to look beyond the conventional realm, as we do.
Conventional realm. That's
I know.
certainly one word for it. And I personally, I was a massive fan of the incarnations of 2008 and 2009, and achieved great things. And when it came to 2011 and 2012, I also did very well on there. In fact, taking an Eton all the way from the Blue Square North to the Premier League, which was perhaps my greatest achievement in life.
The weird part is that even my closest friends know about that and speak of it as a glory they witnessed themselves, despite having never seen your save.
I could have made it up, and unfortunately, there is no evidence of that. My laptop having been stolen, but I think that I use it as a point to illustrate the way that it draws you in and it can really keep you interested, because it is as lifelike as you're going to get in this day and age. And we mention it because the new incarnation
is out.
2014 is out, and I do believe someone has had a look at it.
I've already played 2 seasons, to be honest, Tom.
Wow, that's
one of the benefits of a struggling job market is that a man finds himself more often than not drawn to the allure of a tactics board and dealing with that, edgy left back that wants 5k more a week.
Who is that edgy left back? Is that Matty Taylor?
It was Marek Czech.
Oh dear.
Who I signed on a free midway through my first season as cover. That's a tidbit for another day. But no, I've already played 2 full seasons, and I've played every FM now since 2008, 2009. Can't remember the exact one exactly, but this it evolves and adapts every year into a much, much better product. Much in the same way that a drug dealer will occasionally up or lower the dosage of the cut he makes of cocaine to keep his buying audience hooked. That's the kind of situation we're looking at here. But the thing they've really focused on this year and upgraded is the media side of things. Managers will now comment on your playing style, and you will find yourself screaming at your monitor when Mick McCarthy insults possession football in favour of the hoof it approach.
Mick McCarthy, dear me. That man has literally... Yes, he's allowed an opinion, but in my opinion, he can stick up his bollocks to quote Big Roy Keane. But go on.
Of course, when you hear the experience that all his island caps have brought him come out in that broad Yorkshire accent, you are often wilt to wonder about the validity of what he has to say.
Yeah, he's less Irish than I am.
Yeah,
saying something.
And with a surname like Patrick, that's a legitimate claim.
Yeah, I do know. Are there new features such as job interviews? I've heard.
Job interviews. I mean, admittedly, I haven't had one yet, but yeah, job interviews are a fascinating new feature. I am looking forward to them, mainly as it'll currently give me practice at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's
I don't think you can necessarily. I don't think the skills are immediately transferable, to be honest.
I did wonder why Asda didn't want me back after I spent 4 minutes extolling the virtue of a good youth system.
Well, you've got to bring them through. You've got to bring them through.
Start them young.
Yeah.
But an interesting thing for all those who like an obscure challenge is I've noticed that the Indian League, or the I-League, is now playable. So those looking to broaden their horizons further can now try and capture the hearts and imagination of a million virtual fans across.
A million?
billion. I'm terrible with numbers.
Okay, I'll let you off it. And have they got any stars? The I-League? Have they? I honestly don't know. If they. I know, for example, a lot of teams in Asia, sort of the Saudi Arabians, Qatar, they often get in the South American playmakers.
Much in the way that Australia has its marquee system, and Newcastle Jets have, of course, their marquee, one Emil Heskey.
Oh, yeah, and of course, Alessandro Del Piero is also there as well. So
Indeed.
There's a lot to.
There's a lot of striking talent.
So much. And does that kind of thing go on in the I-League, or is it?
Well, football hasn't really grabbed India yet. What with their almost fanatical devotion to cricket.
Yeah.
Much in the same way that the MLS won't ever really break into mainstream America, I can't see football catching on in India.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a market over there, and I think they're going to push it. I think the powers that be are going to push football very heavily.
Indeed.
So you can expect a lot of that. And just before we go, we have to mention Deon Macaulay, who is a household name in every single household in the land. And
the land being?
Belize. He's from Belize City in Belize, and he was their top scorer with 11 goals in the tournament, and in fact, the joint top scorer in the whole tournament, in the whole World Cup qualifying,
alongside names such as
Robin van Persie and Luis Suarez. So clearly, he's got some talent, this lad. And
he scored the first goal in qualification for this World Cup. Interestingly,
he's also
against
scored
Montserrat in 2011.
Wow. Well,
so he's got two nice little records on his mantle. I don't know if the mantelpiece has caught on in Belize, but wherever he keeps his records, he's got two more now.
I think that might cheapen his goal tally a little bit, saying that some of them came against Montserrat. But fair play to him anyway.
You can only beat what's in front of you at the end of the day.
You can only beat. You can only score goals against the teams you're playing against. Oh, I've never scored against Panama, but I've never played against them. So,
of course, that proposed friendly fell through at the last minute due to you demanding too much on your expense account, I believe.
I tried to buy 3 different shirts with my name on them, not on the back, on the front.
Well, there you go, kids. If you've learned nothing from today, is that you need to.
You have learned nothing from today. Remember that you have learned nothing.
Yes, totally nothing.
Now, that is our main aim, for you to listen to this, wonder why, and then tell everyone else that you've learned nothing. But
yet you'll come back for more. Again, much like Football Manager or heroin.
Yeah, very Moorish, that heroin. Can't get enough.
Until next time, readers, listeners.
Yeah, till next time.